Alright guys, welcome to this first video where we'll actually be using the MatterControl program, and in this video I just want to really quickly go over the navigation because it's not going to do you much good if you can't navigate around this scene. There's not a whole lot to talk about here, it's pretty self-explanatory, but let's just run through it really quickly. So first off, our left click is going to be to select an object. We can also drag and select an object like so. Our right click is going to allow us to pan around our environment. And you'll see wherever I click, it sets this kind of anchor point, and that's what we're going to pan around. So if we want to pan around an object, we're going to want to click on our object, and that will allow us to pan around it. Our scroll wheel is going to allow us to move around our environment. And then using the scroll wheel up and down, scrolling on our scroll wheel is going to allow us to zoom in and out of our scene. Now MatterControl has added these options up here, which are kind of nice because it allows you to use this program without using a mouse. For a long time, you kind of had to use a mouse to use this program, but now you can use these to navigate around your environment without using your mouse. So right now I've switched over to the mouse pad on my laptop, and I'm going to show you how you do this. So once again, left click is going to be to select an object, and we can drag and select. Our right click is going to allow us to pan around, but here's where we run into trouble because we don't have a scroll wheel, so we can't move around. However, if we come over here and we select move view, now our left click will allow us to move around our scene. We can also select rotate view, and now our left click will allow us to rotate around the scene. And our zoom view is going to zoom us in and out. I'm not quite sure what this one is for because even if we're on one of these other settings, if we just scroll up and down on our mouse pad, it's still going to scroll us in and out. So I'm not quite sure what that's for, but it's there if you want to use it, I guess. Another way to look around the scene is to use this navigation cube here. So we can click on different points on this cube and it'll snap us to those various views. We can also just click and hold on it and pan about our scene that way. Now over here we can switch between perspective mode and orthographic, so depending on how you want your view to be. And then we also have turntable mode, and I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what this does. In the description for it, it says up will always be up, but I don't really notice too much of a difference with it. I guess it's a little easier to pan around an object with turntable mode on than with it off. So up to you if you want to use that. It's just on by default and I just leave it on. Over on this side, we have this option that will reset our view back to the default. So we're on default right now, but if we just got really kind of wonky, we're not sure where we're at, we can click this and it'll reset us back to that default view. We can also select an object, and this option is going to zoom us in to whatever object we selected. Right here, we have view mode, and we can switch between different view modes, so shaded, outlines, polygons. Now with the polygons, this is going to show you all the polygons in your model. However, you can't individually select and manipulate the different vertices and corners and whatnot like you could in something like Blender. We have materials, so if you're going to be printing in various materials, then you might want this view. We also have overhangs, which are going to highlight the different overhangs on our model. Now, right here we have snap grid, and this just determines the size of the grid that we snap to. I know I just repeated what it said, but let me show you what I mean. So if I come over here, and I'm using my arrow keys right now, if I hit over, my model is going to move to the side in increments of 5 millimeters. And I can adjust that. I can move it in increments of 1 millimeter all the way down to 0.1 millimeters or I could just turn it off entirely. So up to you on what you want to set this on. I just usually leave it on 0.1. Alright, this is Matt from the future jumping back in to say one more thing about the snap grid because I forgot. So snap grid, like I said, it's going to determine the increments that your object moves around your scene. However, snap grid is also going to change the increments that your object grows or shrinks by when you're scaling it. So let me show you that. If I click here and I drag this, you can see that the size here is changing in increments of 1 millimeter. Like so. If I change this to 5, it's going to jump in increments of 5 millimeters. So that's just something to keep in mind. If it won't let you change it to a measurement that you want to change it to, then there's a good chance you need to come over here and change the snap grid or just turn it off entirely. So that's just something to keep in mind with snap grid. Alright, back to the rest of the video. The only other things to really talk about is maneuvering the object itself. You can click and drag an object around your screen. You can also use the arrow keys to move it, and like I said, this snap grid will determine the increments that it moves in. And we also have this arrow here, which will allow us to move it up and down. Alternatively, you can click that arrow and it'll bring up this little field here. You can click that and specify the amount you want to raise your model off of the bed. Now, to snap your model back down to the bed, you can just come here and click this button, lay flat, and that will snap it back down to the bed. Now that's really all there is to talk about with navigation. Navigating inside MatterControl is pretty self-explanatory and probably just like most of the other modeling programs that you've used if you've used any. So I know this video is kind of self-explanatory, probably not needed, but hopefully you found it to be kind of helpful. I'll see you in the next one.